see me after Masterclass. But I have the pleasure of introducing this soloist. She is from Shenzhen, China, and she is a graduate of Juilliard and a Clyburn finalist. Everybody, please welcome in Fei-Fei. Now we have Theodore, who is going to start his Masterclass.
Yeah. that you captured the energy in this work, and in this such a sizzling, kind of exciting finale, the rhythmic energy and the articulation, many wonderful things. Do you play the whole sonata, or you are working? Yes. Tell us a little bit about this piece. Maybe share with us.
So Haydn, he composed this sonata. It's probably it is his last sonata, and it's probably one of his greatest sonatas because of the daring and adventurous qualities it has. For example, it's made it's in the key of E flat major, but in the second movement he dared to go to E major, which is quite insane.
Yes, which is one of the most distant keys that you can. It's absolutely very unconventional for a second movement to go that. Yes, absolutely. Continue.
Yeah, and there's a lot of virtuosity in this piece, a lot of syncopation, a lot of very mischievous things. He's a very kind of joking character, and especially in the second movement, he'll have like a really loud section, and then he'll suddenly just make it all soft again. And so it's kind of like this back and forth between these two characters of Haydn.
Yeah, you mentioned that this is one of his. It is his last three, one of his last three sonatas that he wrote when he was in London, right? And you mentioned absolutely correctly that it's considered one of his greatest, right? Tell us a little bit, maybe, what do you think is so great about it? Or what do you especially love, or that's so special about this piece?
I think I just love the grandeur of it, just how he breaks away from tradition, and he has the freedom to explore new ideas.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most interesting.
Yeah, I find it really interesting because sometimes especially in sonatas, sometimes his sonatas are often overshadowed a little bit by Mozart and Beethoven's, but I find it absolutely fascinating. He actually composed a lot of sonatas, over 60 of them. And oftentimes when we look at, for example, Beethoven's 32 sonatas, we kind of see the evolution of Beethoven as a composer, and sonata kind of taking this model and expanding it to something else. But what I find fascinating about Haydn is that throughout his composition, the earliest ones are not even called sonatas, right? They are called partitas or divertimentos. And to these last three, they're considered the pinnacle of his output, but also just in general, the Viennese style of classical sonata. So we really see how this genre has been born and been shaped and standardized into this format. But the greatest thing, I think, I find it, because sometimes when we play works from this time, is a couple of hundred years removed from our present time. So I always like to remind myself kind of to put ourselves into that context again, right? So if we look at early Haydn sonatas, we'll see there's absolutely no dynamic markings. There's no markings in general at all. So throughout his output, we'll see not only the evolution of the genre itself, but also the instrument itself. The keyboard instrument has gone through such an evolution from probably the earliest, the clavichord, and then most of the early middle sonatas would be composed for harpsichord. But this last group of three sonatas, they were written when he was visiting London, right? So, and there he also had the newest instrument, pianoforte, which is one step closer to what we have today. So, and all of that change, the new evolutions or new revolutions that's happening to the instrument, is also reflected in his notation as well. In his early sonatas, there's absolutely no markings, but in this one, I mean, now we've played a lot of 20th or 21st century music. So when we go back to Haydn, we still feel the markings are very sparse, right? Only a couple of accents there, a couple of crescendo and decrescendos here and there in pianofortes. There's not even a mezzo forte, for example, right? But then I would love for us to be back into that context again, and then really fully appreciate all of these markings that were almost like a new invention of their time. Like, let's go back to the very beginning. And I think compared to this period, I don't know why my iPad is doing this. Other than the piano and fortes, what other things do you see so much throughout this movement, other than the dynamic like piano and forte? What are the other unusual things that probably are not seen so often in early Haydn? The Sforzandi. Yes, a lot of fermatas, right? Yeah, I would love for us to try the beginning maybe one more time, and especially the fermatas. I feel like you did the dynamic contrast so well, and also the Sforzandis, the kind of constantly syncopated, right? Because these Sforzandis, they are never on the beat. They are always on the weakest beat in a measure, and that kind of creates such nervous, almost unsettled quality. But fermatas are some of the areas I would love for us to try. You know, because the silence can also be exciting in a piece like this. And somehow we can think, enjoy, and embrace that silence and think how we can transform and get ready for the next phrase somehow. Let's try it from the very beginning one more time. Look at the beginning. What do you think? What element is in the music that makes this music quite almost suspenseful in the very beginning? What is it?
The repeated E flat.
Yes, exactly. Because this, the repeated E flat, but also in the left hand, but also in the right hand in the very beginning, right? Because this piece could have started like that, but it starts right with this ostinato or this repetition in the right hand. If we don't know the piece, we really don't know where this is going to go. So I would love, there is a little bit more, I like the consistency in the articulation, but something a little bit more in the core of the sound. A little bit more energy even in the repetition specifically, and almost thinking you are going to the rest instead of thinking you are going to, this is not a resting place. Almost send your energy to the rest, into the rest. And then again, it starts with, this is, and the second time, there's absolutely no modulation. It kind of just moves up, right? So it's a surprise there. Again, we go into this, and then it's the fortissimo. So each time it's surprise. Surprise us and surprise yourself. Let's try one more time. And you see also, just say one last thing before you try this section again. How long is the first phrase?
8 measures.
How long is the second one?
8 measures.
How long is the third one?
10.
10, 12, right? It's longer. It breaks the pattern. And where does it, and when the fortissimo, forte comes in, right? And how would you, I think it kind of groups it into this 2-measure pattern and then repeat. And then it kind of abbreviates into, shortens into a 1-measure pattern, right? And then into a half-measure pattern. I think there's also an energy building there by shortening these phrases first from 2, 2, and then 1 and a half, and push to a cadence, right? And then with this chromatic come in, it kind of transports us to a different place. Yeah. Let's try this beginning one more time. Yeah, I think the last note can be exactly how long it's supposed to be. It's right now just a little bit too long so that it feels a little bit too settled. Have a very rhythmic cutoff of the note so that we feel exactly the length. Yeah, one more time. And here, I think even, you know, once you get to the forte, right? I like the beginning, it's a surprise. But somehow I wish we could sustain that forte a little bit more. So that instead of almost it feels like a forzando, and then it goes back to a softer dynamic. Try to sustain it up a little bit more. Be a little bit more insistent with the dynamic. Stay up a little bit more. And as you go from the, I think you can also do a little bit of a crescendo, maybe towards the end of the cadence. And then that will set you up for that color change there, yeah? Let's try one last time, just the beginning of these phrases. Section a little bit. How do you think the character changes from here? Contrasting with the beginning, the also eighth note. One's accompaniment is this ostinato that you said, right? Now, something changes, right? Just verbalize a little bit for us. What exactly do you think? What are you trying to? Is it something a little bit more aria-like, songful, or is it something that you think, yeah?
I think it's
melancholy, right? I think so. From the kind of a minor, hinting at a minor, C minor, right? And also with this chromaticism. I think whenever we encounter chromaticism, I always think it's so special because going very to the beginning of music history, whenever we encounter chromaticism, it always symbolizes something very emotional, something very tormenting or struggling. It's always something I think means a lot to all composers, especially in a classical period, right? Right away, set the, and then how the phrase is the first time, right? The second time, it reaches higher. Versus the first time it goes down, the second time, and then it continues with an even bigger leap. And then it's set in this constant syncopation. What it does is then we no longer feel where the beats are. It puts us really kind of unease, right? I like the articulation in your left hand. It's very even. But you know, when the left hand is written like this, I think there is a counterpoint that's implied because it comes with so many leaps, right? There is, for example, in the bass line, there is a chromaticism. I wish, actually, even within this all-eighth note accompaniment, we can bring out the implied counterpoint. And by bringing out a bass line, that kind of implements the constant syncopation in the right hand, right? Can we try this time a couple of things? The thing, how the phrase each time changes. And then it changes energy. And then here we hit the plateau, we hit the repetition again, right? And here, I know the tendencies that we want to go with the excitement that the music brings us, right? But I feel like here is actually a good moment to do quite the contrary. You kind of like you're braking, you're holding the horse a little bit. And then really, then we can appreciate the full effect of these misplaced, these syncopated accents. Yeah, I talked a lot. Let's try all of these from this section, yeah. Yeah, even this, I would go all the way to the E flat. Sometimes sometimes we get a little bit distracted by the ornaments before, right? And then it feels like a diminuendo, really. Especially this is also in a syncopated place, and it's also tied over to the next note. So really sing out that E flat, I think. I like the first three phrases better. Once we get here, how do you think, we have so many forsandos, right? Consecutive ones in those four measures. How do you think it evolves?
Probably like a subtle crescendo.
Right, I think it continues to intensify throughout, right? Because the first one is just a single note. And the second one is this dissonance, right? It's the most dissonant interval that we can get from the piano, which is this, right? And then it changes to this, but then with the chromatic added in the left hand, right? And it culminates in, it really go for fortissimo, because it's very rarely marked in this piece. And I would like us to do a true fortissimo. But I think goes back to what I'm saying in the very beginning about Haydn's time. He rarely marks these things. And he's also new to be marking these dynamics, because these dynamics are now finally possible to be achieved on the instrument that he's working with. And now he's notating these things. And forzando is his favorite kind of marking for when he wants emphasis on the note. So let's try from here. Maybe try once just a little bit, not slower, but a little bit under, so that we feel the suspense one time, that feel the evolution of the dynamics. Yes, one more time, and this time I like the accents. Be extremely precise with the, and feel the spacing between the notes. So they are not comfortably repeating. They are. You should make people feel like on the edge of their seat. You hear the difference between something a little bit more leisurely versus, I think maybe it's a little bit shorter, yeah. And make sure we don't rush forward. You see, as an experiment, if I don't rush versus if I go with it, it kind of is two very different kind of energy, right? Let's experiment with the kind that's more suspenseful, that you want to run forward, but you are not. Yes. Sorry, I'll maybe try from here to get into that part. Actually, this part is very dramatic. Almost every couple of measures, the emotions change and the drama change, right? For example, here we talked about the suspension. And then for one measure, we burst into this fortissimo that's so triumphant. And then we go into this chord really presents, it's placed in a very strong place, right? And almost it's like we hit a wall, and that wall is not a resolution. It's something very dissonant. And then he's kind of trying to resolve it, but he couldn't figure it out how. So there are moments of almost like questions, suspensions in the music, right? And then eventually, I think here he finds it. So there's a joy in resolving that crisis that we just faced. And then here, is also different, right? And then another harmonic crisis. This note is not supposed to be there. The D flat does not belong in a B flat major, right? So however you want to characterize the repetition of it, by these two notes are not supposed to be there. And then it kind of resolves again, right? Can we try just this passage with the time we have left? This part, kind of unpack and include all of these drama that's changing almost every measure. Yes. Let's maybe, from here one more time. One last tip for you. Maybe I like the change of energy. I see you are trying to switch gear around here, but make sure not too short. I think there still needs to be quarter notes as written. Maybe still more. These are maybe still longer. And then there, once you get it there, in the classical style, you never have fast notes, but every note is important. That only exists later in Romantic. When we play Chopin, when we play Romantic, we say, oh, sing every note. Every note is significant. But in classical style, the runs are always so much more livelier, right? And focus on the big notes. For example, don't be worried about every note, but think those notes. So the underlying rhythm is really one note per measure. This is partly why I say here the energy changes, because here the underlying rhythm becomes 2 per measure, right? And then these 2 measures are 1 chord. That's why they create that kind of a drive. Right? Let's try just this last bit one last time from maybe here. Is that all? Too short, I think, Yes, better. I would drive all the way. I'm playing wrong thing, but don't get shy towards the end of it. Go all the way. And then people are going to wonder, how is this music going to continue, right? It's kind of a dead end. And then you continue. I think that's part of the humor, and that's part of what makes this movement so exciting and always kind of with surprising turns, right? But you're already doing a fantastic job. Thank you. Yeah. amazing job. Yeah, yeah, you're very brave to play this cold and sitting here with a warm-up and just get up and play the most difficult piece ever written. It definitely brings back a lot of trauma from my childhood. Yeah, you know, I find this piece very, very interesting in the way that, and it doesn't even modulate throughout the whole thing, right? It just stays in the same thing, and by repeating it, but then each repetition, the music evolves a little bit. Almost how would you say what is evolving throughout this piece, through the restatement of the themes that keeps coming back? What is Liszt doing with this?
He's kind of making it more intense.
Yeah, I think I think so. He basically composes out what, from the very beginning, it's just note, like one note, right? They're not even with 4 measures. And then he starts with just the 16th note, right? And the theme first comes. And the second time, and now everything is in the upper register, right? And then the second time, the right hand stays the same, but the left hand almost joins. So it adds a little bit something, a different sonority into kind of this dimension, right? And what happens in the third time? You can use your music. If we only not look at this part, but just this theme. What's the third time?
It's different.
How is it different? It will be around here, right? Well, let's not talk about this. Yeah, let's focus on exactly just this theme.
We're in the left hand.
In the left hand, right? So what used to be the theme in the right hand now is an octave lower, gaining a kind of a little bit of warmth. And how does the right hand change?
The right hand is kind of the same theme.
Quite a little bit different. In the right hand, basically, this is the melody accompanied by this one note, right? But now it changes into this pattern. Something is a little bit busier, right? Something is growing, right? And then how does the next statement?
It's the repeated notes.
Yeah, well, they are all repeated, right? A lot of all repeated. How is it exactly different? It's faster or slower?
Faster.
Yeah. Instead of y, 8th note, it's y. It's triplet, right? And then compared to the beginning, it would be, normally it would be like that, right? But now the left hand also, he composes an intensification of it, that it's fuller. Something is fuller, right? And then let's go to the next one. Where's the next statement of this thing?
After the trill, and then also in the left hand, but higher up again.
Yeah, so the melody stays in the left hand this time. So the right hand, the texture changes from originally a 16th note to triplet, a little bit faster, and now it's what? You are very optimistic. You look at the easy thing. What happens in the top voice?
The top voice is the trill.
Yeah, not only a trill, what exactly is it?
This.
It's 32nd note. It's double the tempo of the beginning, isn't it? He composes an accelerando out for us from the 16th note to slowly, incrementally to triplet, to, right? And then what happens next?
It's 32nd notes again. It's
Yes, now the right hand kind of takes back. Now the speed is set, right? It's in the newer tempo, but then he takes the melody, taking it back to the right hand, right? And then what's the final thing?
with the octaves.
Yes. It is, how is it the most different? Well, it goes back to what's the beginning, right? That in terms of tempo, but what's the most important thing, this one?
It's louder.
Yes, it's very, very loud, right? So throughout this piece, we see the same, almost is like a variation. We see this same theme gets manipulated and transformed and disguised and eventually blossomed into, right? So basically, Liszt composes the evolution of this theme out for us. So almost if he's a director, that's the plot he's kind of doing. So after tracing all of these, what I'm trying to encourage you to do is to kind of, we can follow this narrative a little bit better. You know, it's very easy when we get nervous to get on stage and get very faster. And then that leaves us a little bit, not a lot of room that we can continue to grow, continue to intensify, right? So in the very beginning, I think the simpler it is, the calmer it is, it will make the contrast, make enough more room for growth. So for example, in the beginning, again, it's almost like the Haydn. When people want to be suspenseful, they just repeat one note. And then again, also the fermata. And then everybody is listening. You can be as slow as you want in the beginning. I'm not demonstrating well with cold hands, but the second point, let's try that from the very beginning first, and then I'll make my second point. Yeah. Try one more time. I would already put the pedal down before you start, so right away, even the very first note is already like a bell ringing. So don't put it down together, but already down. Could we try one version, Aaron, that your eighth note is exactly the same tempo as whatever the tempo you're going to come in. Right now, the introduction has its own tempo, and this is all of a sudden much faster. Let's try, experiment away, whatever this tempo is, dun, dun, dun. Rest, same tempo. So there is no disconnection between these two parts, because this really is the seed that Liszt planted, and the next step is we're just following how it blossoms into the final pages, right? Let's try one more time, exactly the same tempo. Bum, 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 bum. Better, yes, better. You know, I find it very interesting. I think the colder you can be, the more objective you can be, as if you're really just watching something, then the more it can warm up. And then imagine this theme eventually, right? And the more you can dramatize this range, I think the more successful this piece will be. The second, that brings me to the second point. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the second statement. If the first statement is as objective and as almost as cold as you can be, the key though is there is a melody in the middle, right? But it's very easy to feel by the half measure. It's very easy to feel like the rhythmic elements becomes overpowering. I would love for us, even though everything is staccato, right, that we are still able to portray a line, a phrase. Can we try once? Let's get rid of all these notes. Just do. And now without the difficulty, think about how you would like to phrase this if it's a little bit simpler, like technically. Yeah? Let's try just with the melody and the accompaniment. Now let's do one completely wrong and crazy. Let's do them legato. let's try. Phrase it how you would like, but do them. Yeah, so where are you trying to phrase to? Where do you think the harmonic tension is?
A sharp.
In the sixth measure?
Yeah.
That's kind of a release, right? It's good to go there. And then this is a dissonance, appoggiatura, right? Again. Right? Try one more time, even longer. And a little bit louder as well, so that you can hear it. Yeah. Let's use all thumbs so that when you go back to normal. Continue the phrase. Right? Okay. I like that line. Now, let's add the least important thing, which is this, which happens to be the most difficult thing, but in your mind, you kind of have to switch the gear. Don't let your mind be completely preoccupied with the leaps, but focus on what is the main melodic idea. Yeah, let's try that. Very good. And then go to the second one and see how you feel now the character transforms in the second statement. Very good. This is kind of the second statement theme. We later know that it will eventually, this part will kind of blossom into a waltz, right? It eventually becomes, right, a waltz. But right now he's skipping the third beat. So we're kind of getting the dancey feeling, but without knowing what exactly it is, right? So we still have this beautiful melody, now a little bit ornamented. With the dance. And then with the least important thing. I think this way is a little bit more interesting than if we equalize the two notes in the right hand a little bit too much, then they become, it's hard for our ears to grasp what exactly is happening. So almost we're separating the right hand into two voices and then adding more context to it by analyzing what is happening in the other voices. Can we now try the second one more time? Yes. Very good. Now let's go to the third time. With a little bit lead in, you can start anywhere. Maybe here. This time the melody goes into the left hand, right? Do you think the character becomes a little bit warmer, a little bit more down to earth, or it's the opposite? What do you think? What changes here? Because so many is repeated, right? we are interested in finding what's repeated, but we are even more interested in finding what's evolving, what's changing, so that we almost, it's like showing a nice diamond under different light. It's shining different colors, right? So it's the same thing, but what color is it now? Is it a little bit warmer, or is it, what is it?
I guess so.
Yes, and how can we reflect that? If we can both agree that now is an octave lower versus now it's almost is like a tenor is singing it or something, right? So how can we reflect it in our sound? So not only we know, but our audience, our listeners can also hear that change. Maybe that has something in our left hand because the melody has it, right? I would encourage you to separate it again a little bit more from this. And then play, don't be afraid because they're staccato that you have to make them so soft. You know, keep this soft, but I think the right hand, the left hand can be, and don't be too worried about making them super short. Still, you are licensed to phrase them as you want. Can we try the left hand alone one time? I'll play the right hand. I'll start the measure before. How about that? A little bit longer with pedal as well. When we try to make a line, right, through the line, I think it's not only important, I think the shaping is general better, but I'm also interested in the second and third beats of the melody, because without speaking those fully, sometimes we feel more by the beat, right, a little bit more by the beat. But if we really pay attention to the second, not only the first, but also the second and third, then they really become shaped as one line. Can we try the same thing one more time? I'll do still one measure before. Okay, now I have a good news for you. When you add the right hand in, staccato is the last thing you need to worry about, because even if you try to play legato, there's absolutely no way, because we are jumping. So you don't even need to worry about it. It will be naturally staccato. So now can you add the right hand in and put it, really is the least important thing. Focus still in how beautifully you play the left hand. It will be there, the right hand, yeah? Can we try maybe a little bit before so you can get into it? Focus on the left hand. Yum, bum, 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 bum. Listen for the second and third note. Yum, bum, da, 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 da. Better. I think it's more interesting a little bit this way. Let's go to the next one. This one. So think a little bit more the left hand. Think now it's a full waltz, yeah? Very good. You have wonderful articulation in the right hand. So I think, which is also a good reason that you can actually afford to use more pedal, I think. Again, phrase it a little bit more. Otherwise, it feels like we are a little bit scared. A little bit, right? Warm it up a little bit more. Try one more time, this one. I mean, we don't have time for all that, but I think that's the kind of work we want to do, to see how each time he does something that changes our perspective of the same thing. But now let's go ahead to the very last one. And it started a little bit earlier. I like your tempo plans. I like the piumoso and the animato. It makes it very exciting. I hear the step up, which is very good. Let's start from around here. Here, I would love to hear more dialogue between the... And then maybe the third time, right? Each time it's different. It's like two people kind of having an argument or something. Yeah, let's try from here. You still need to remember to breathe. That's the most important thing. For example, here, don't go directly. Go. Give yourself a moment to breathe. You have the time to. And then once you get here. Strategically, it's good to start a little bit less so that you have a room to do huge crescendo. And once it hits here again, right? So it's more dramatic than sustaining the loudest dynamic for too long. Yeah, let's try this page one last time. Yeah. Yes, that was very exciting. Yes, it was a great job. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you. was very beautiful. Thank you. I loved all the colors, very nuanced and very subtle colors you were able to get out. While you were playing, I was thinking, it's fascinating to see in the very first piece in the Haydn, we kind of talked about how few things he marked, and we were trying to cherish every single marking that we can see on the paper, because each one of them was like a revolution to mark it, because forte piano was not possible, and they marked it. And then to here, and then Ravel, to almost, he's such a meticulous composer. He notates exactly how he wants his music to be played and sound. So it has, every note has something, right, marked. So and then of course this piece, with the middle piece being Liszt, and this piece is of course also inspired by Liszt's Jeux as well. So it's kind of tying everything in together today. And I was also thinking, like, the La Campanellla is so virtuosic, and but this is also incredibly virtuosic, but in such a different way. The Liszt was so kind of in your face and flamboyant about it, but this is the complete opposite. It's something, it's kind of almost like a quiet virtuosity that requires you to be so subtle, so much control of the color. Is not any less difficult than the Liszt. And you are doing a really, really beautiful job in capturing a lot of this. I would like to tell us a little bit about what you like about this piece, or how, when you are learning it, what are the challenges? Or
Yeah, the thing that draws me to this piece is sort of like all the different pictures that you can imagine. I sort of imagine like going down a stream, and it's like, it starts out super calm, and then it gets like sort of windy, and then during the middle section, you get to like the rapids,
yes,
maybe like a waterfall.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, it's like, it's all flat again.
Yes, yes, definitely. It's about the water. In this summer, I actually, for my first time, went to Yellowstone, and I saw geysers for the first time. And this piece, actually, when we were playing, it really made me think about these, because this piece is about the water, sometimes calm, and sometimes they are eruptive, like the geysers or fountains or whatever it is. So there are such fluidity in the colors that everything changes all the time, but without us feeling like it's changing, right? Let's try from the very, very opening. I mean, the exploration of this piece color in the sound and in how we pace different sections is probably infinite. So I'm probably going to just pick a couple of spots throughout the piece that I thought we could discuss. But the first one, let's try the very opening one more time. It's absolutely fascinating how he composes it, because there is, on the one hand, in the left hand, we have this eighth notes, right? That's constant. It doesn't change at all. I mean, the harmonies change. There is an underlying rhythm to it, right? For example, maybe the underlying is. Then the right hand captures that kind of fluidity of the, right? So I want to try two things. First, almost focus a little bit more on the left hand, on the underlying kind of the deeper rhythm, other than the surface level. The surface level is quite constant, right? With this, I mean, with something change. I'm interested, for example, there's a deeper layer of the rhythm. That's the first thing I want to try. And the second thing, you know the piece very well now. I feel like there is an element of this music. People say it's a little bit like impressionism. Something is in the air. something is not so tangible and concrete. So almost, I want you to, almost you become two-person. One is the one that's executing and playing, but there's also a part of you that somewhere out in the hall, you're also listening from somewhere. So almost you are also just experiencing this sonority together with us. Let's try. You know, when we only have pianoforte, it's different. But this piece is also, every composer, there is a language that he works with, right? In Haydn, piano is the softest that we get. But in Ravel, for example, in the first page, the loudest you get is for piano, right? Everything else is actually, so when we get to the third line, for example, it's not a normal forte. It's actually the highlight of what's been happening so far. And with these accents marked in the left hand, I almost feel like there are a little bit bells. And then you diminuendo from there to back to pianissimo. So right now that third, I don't know if you have the same, yeah, this third line feels, it's also, he's also composing, he starts the whole piece in very treble oriented, right? And then keeps going up. The second stanza keeps going up. And then from the third stanza, eventually we hit the lowest note in the first page. He's composing a kind of a descent into a different sound. So I think the third line is a very important turning point in terms of color. Can we try one more time? And also, as you descend, I like that you are softening, but don't lose that crystal clear, that kind of a shine to the sound. For example, don't disappear. Still let it pierce through, even though very quietly. Yeah, let's try it one more time. Beautiful. Don't rush here. Enjoy each chord different. Everything is veiled, but we still see the shapes, almost like we see some geysers erupting from far away. So it's not dramatic, but we see there is some kind of a shape, right? Yes. Let's go to the next place that I want to talk a little bit about. I find it very interesting that to prepare for some of the most dramatic kind of eruption and climaxing the places, he goes through very patiently with some setups, like by repeating phrases and sequencing them. And I feel like some of them can be set up even more purposefully, so that when the big moment comes, it feels really truly rewarding and arrival of some sort. Can we maybe jump ahead to around measure 38? Do you have measure numbers? It's around here, like here. Mm-hmm. You see how he's so meticulous. Like the first statement he marks piano, the second time mezzo forte, then forte, and then fortissimo, and then fortissimo. It's a very long build-up, right? But you only have one measure to get from fortissimo back to piano, right? So think about these large structural things, and think how you will build it up, even within. So that might means even not just the beginning of the measure, but throughout this phrase, how you would push to the next, grow to the next one. Can we try maybe here? because it is a very long build-up. We talk about how impatient he is like, again, it's like incrementally growing a little bit. So it's also almost not tangible. It's not the kind of, we say the terrace kind of sequence we want here, like like that. But it's almost, you don't know when it just kind of become inevitably closer and closer. You feel more and more in the presence of something absolutely magnificent. So I would encourage you to differentiate also again what's textural and what's main idea. Maybe the 8th note can be sung a little bit more, and all of the 32nd notes can be a little bit less important. Yeah. Great clarity, but a little bit separated voicing. Yeah, let's try. The first phrase better. I think it repeats twice, and then when the third time, I like the crescendo, but don't maybe push too much with the tempo itself. And then the second time, again, he composes out. Sometimes I feel like different composers, their markings, it's very different. Like for example, in Beethoven, I feel like if we remove all of his markings, let's say, we probably would never play the piece how he wanted, because it's always very surprising, right? It's like you would never do a subito forte there or a subito piano there because it's unnatural. But I feel like in Ravel's case, a lot of his markings is a reinforcement of what's already been written. For example, even if you don't think there is a mezzo forte there or there is a forte there, if you just play the music as it is, the register naturally deepens and widens, right? And even if we remove all of you, will still do a crescendo. So in that case, I think it's even more important, instead of hitting certain marks, think what is actually evolving in the music. For example, maybe here is the left hand, right? The phrases become shorter, the repetition is less, right? And then here, as you then the left hand start to have those accents, which is not present, right? If you do this accent, they will be stronger, right? Introducing new elements, and then accelerando. Can we do just this much one more time from here? Setup, the first 4 steps are better. Now, once you get to the fortissimo, and then eventually here, we go into this, it's pure sound effect, right? So we really can embrace this a little bit more and enjoy that tremolo, I don't know the notes. Enjoy the sonority. Listen for this. You are kind of part of something greater than the notes. We don't want to be too present. We want to be almost something that washes over your head. I don't know and then transform the color not only with your hand but also the foot. I think because by the hand alone, the leftover sound is so much, there's no way. But we don't want, and then all of a sudden the pedal, right? So a slow release of the pedal. So almost we can feel the sound is leaving leaving us, but in such a subtle way. But let's try just the arrival point of this. You know, this part is actually the easiest part in terms of technique, right? So don't worry about anything, just enjoy. Yeah, let's try maybe just from the fortissimo going into that. One thing that will help us establish a good sound at the beginning of this is make sure this is like a bell that rings out. Because if this is too dry, then it kind of didn't quite arrive. Let it ring. Yes, try one more time. It's better. Emotionally, I want something even more soul-shaking. Yeah. So I think, for example, you know, it's in the details. You know, we are all in the pentatonic of this. Where is the first note that breaks that pentatonic scale? It's all black keys. Where's the first white key that comes and breaks all of these patterns? Exactly, that, and which is also, right, the lowest note, right? So, you know, that note is not something that's just an accent, but it's a turning point. Like when you drive, it turns and goes into somewhere completely different. So it's not something that you just hit it, and then we don't really register what's happening because it's so low. What is happening is you need to hear something is about to change, that is over. Yeah, let's try that one last time. Yeah. Sonically, it's better. I think everything is a reaction against what's happening. So when you set up this correctly, when the theme kind of surfaces from such huge sound, it's like after a waterfall or something, you couldn't see anything, but then you gradually see something resurfaces or something. And it's a tune that's disguised in a new version, a familiar something that's now a little bit transformed, right? I think that's something to keep track. You know, that same kind of a build-up happens again here, right? Here, right? With this theme, like again, each time a little bit different. Piano, mezzo forte, forte, and it's constantly building up to. I think this is something, I think in Ravel's music we can continue to explore. But there's one more section that I would love for us to try, which I think is a very special section, as you also have a lot of things marked around here. What are you thinking about this part?
Like musically or technically?
Musically. Technically, you are great over there. Yes.
Well, I guess a cascade would be the best word to describe it.
Uh-huh. Is it also leading up to somewhere, you think?
It almost feels like it, but it's also getting quieter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this whole section is pianissimo, right? So.
Yeah. What do you think is so special about this section? What is, sometimes, you know,
The harmony is really interesting.
Harmony is very interesting. And you know, sometimes something is special not because we have something. Sometimes something is also special because something is absent. What is absent here?
There's no bass line.
And there's no melody. There's really nothing here, right? There's no bass. There's no melody. The harmonies are barely able to register, right? So really, we almost are entering a sound world that's without gravity. We're kind of just drifting around different colors, right? I find this part absolutely fascinating. And then I think when it comes down, I think the whole thing builds up to around here, right? Can we try that one more time and transport us into a sound world that's, like you said, bassless, melodyless, but then with ever-changing colors of different harmonies. That's actually without a certain pattern, right? The pattern here is not obvious. Each chord is a surprise. There's no logical relationship between all of them chords. They're just colors, right? Chords as not functional harmonies, but as colors. Can we try from maybe the pianissimo place? And a little bit slower one, so that we can really relish all of them. Yes, from maybe pianissimo part, this part. Can we try once do an odd exercise, but can we pause after each chord so that we really hear what's going on? Try to find different shades of color with each chord. Very good. And now, without pausing, but keep all the colors that you are able to get from all of the sequences, yeah? Time, and this time, the idea that we talked about earlier, that you are not playing, you are observing, you are just listening. Try that. Listening more to yourself. I think if we are really into like this sound world that you created, that's so magical, and then it dies down towards the end of it. Like almost it's like when I was watching guys, you thought it's over. You thought, okay, this one is, and just when you're about to leave, then something erupts. Right? This one needs to be very, very dramatic. From three pianos, pianissimo to fortissimo, right? In half a measure. I think that's Ravel telling us something is very, very special here. So, and coming from this, I think maybe something that have to come up right away, I think you set it up very well. Like I really felt something was closing off. Then you are halfway successful for a surprise. Try from the measure before and then go into that. Or anywhere, yes, maybe from here. I love how basically what he needs to write is just one big diminuendo, right? But he's so meticulous, like every couple of notes he marks fortissimo, forte, mezzo forte, piano, rallentando, right? So actually, if we do exactly follow this plan, have you tried exactly following this plan? Try once. Don't think it's a general diminuendo once. For example, the once is rough. I like that. The first couple, there's no diminuendo, right? So enjoy when you are kind of actively, and then diminuendo to forte, to mezzo forte, and then the rallentando only happens when in the very end. Yeah, let's try directly from here. Continue, yes. Continue, yeah. think that's the idea, but I think, of course, we can continue to explore to make it even more like it's just coming into become one thing, right? But I think it's absolutely fascinating. But I think in the study steps of this piece, it's fascinating to see how he composes the diminuendo. The left hand, a chord, by taking out one note in the chord, by taking out two notes, becomes third, and then by to the E, from to the E, right? It's very fascinating how meticulous Ravel is. It's fascinating to see the relationship between composers and performers. Some composers we have more room, but then some composers he really want to have absolute control of a lot of the elements. And of course, this kind of a trend of absolute control continue to intensify. I mean, by the time of Berg, then every note has even more, and then it becomes absolutely crazy. Every note has like 10 markings of telling you what to do with this one note. And eventually, performers are fed up with it, and that's how then we have minimalism. Then we are going back to the simplest, right? So I find it all very interesting. It's really a wonderful program today, from Haydn to Liszt to Ravel. So not only we hear 3 wonderful performances, but also gives us a chance to kind of journey through this musical history and get a taste of such diverse personalities from different composers. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Do we have time? You mentioned about a quick Q&A. Okay. Yeah. Yes. What is my day like today as a musician? I perform a lot. So like today, I got up at 5 and I went to the airport and I landed, I dropped my luggage and I came here. But I think day to day, I think it's always a mix of things, all the things that I love. From the performing side, I love performing solo concertos. That's a completely different experience, and also as well as recitals, and I also do a lot of chamber music. So there's always a big chunk of my day that's designated to learning all the rap, to practice. And I also do a fair amount of teaching. I teach in New York at the Manhattan School of Music, as well as at Montclair State University in New Jersey. So I also spend quite a lot of time teaching and working with my students, and then trying to also have a little time to go to Yellowstone. Yes, just kidding. Yeah, but yeah. Does that answer your question, or you had something, different in mind? Yeah. Yes. It's very close, actually. Yes. So I live in New York. So I live very close to Manhattan School of Music, where I'm also finishing my doctoral studies there. But New Jersey is very close. I just take a train there, and I don't have to go too often. I consolidate a lot of my teaching in one day, so I go once a week. Yes. Yes. Okay. Any other question? You have one more? Okay. Mm-hmm. Have I performed? Sorry? Oh yeah, Rachmaninoff is one of my favorite concertos. This season, this fall, I'm very lucky I get to play. Here I'm playing also Chopin and Rachmaninoff are 2 of my most favorite composers. So here I'm playing Chopin, but I'm also doing 3 Rachmaninoff concertos this year. I just did Rachmaninoff Paganini Rhapsody, and also coming up, I'm doing 2 times the Rachmaninoff Third and also Rach 2 later in the fall. Yes. Sorry, I missed the last part of your question. You said not only about the piece, but also about a context. Yeah, I find it very interesting because when playing different composers, it's almost like meeting new people and becoming friends with some of them. some of them you naturally feel easy, like to, and for everybody that will be a different person. And for me, like maybe I feel Chopin, even when I was very young, I felt his music spoke to me very dearly. So it's like an easy friend to make. Of course, you still study and continue to deepen that relationship. But then there are also composers, for example, Beethoven. I mean, Beethoven is hard for most people, just because his unique life experiences, very few people have that. And to be able to understand that and to go into this world then takes probably even more study and practice to kind of get into that world. So I feel like it's fascinating to encounter different personalities through their music, and not only by how their music sound, but also how their scores look, you know. It's very interesting when you see Beethoven's manuscript, when he doesn't like something, he crosses it out like in dramatic markings. But Chopin, for example, his handwriting is so delicate, like all of his manuscripts looks like ready to publish, and everything is so neat and clean. So it's always very fascinating to look into it. And I don't think these music exist in a vacuum. They're all coming from a context. You know, Chopin is not the only composer. There are also a lot of his contemporaries. And so I think it's really through music we almost relive that part of history, which I think is very interesting. As performers, we're basically trying to reconstruct that context through each performance, because we're living in a completely different world now. A lot of things that was significant or that was exciting in their time, without the right mindset, it would feel like, what is this? It's nothing, you know? So I feel like we have to go back in time and appreciate, oh wow, that was a huge thing then. And how can I, in my performance, to reflect that? How can I bring that excitement, that innovation, or something groundbreaking, and that excitement back to the audience? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I saw a hand up, yes. What's your favorite thing when you're practicing? What my favorite thing when I'm practicing? What is my favorite thing to do when I'm practicing? Favorite thing. You know, when I was little, I used to like to hide a book behind it. And I just try to read and then do one hand and read. But now, as I'm getting older, I really try to focus when I practice, and practice very purposefully, because you don't have endless times anymore. You know, you were young, you can practice 8 hours, 10 hours, and many of the hours are probably wasted or something. But now I try to be very thoughtful and very intentional with all the things I do. Yes, you see.
How many different pieces of repertoire could you be preparing at one time?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you kind of break down how much time you dedicate to practicing each piece?
Yeah, that's the most difficult question, because it's all about planning. And I think for every person it's different. And whether, if you have played this piece before, and how comfortable you are with the composer. So I like something that my mentor and teacher, Yevhen Bronfman, he always says, it's all about the planning. Sometimes you think, okay, 3 months, for this piece, I should start 3 months earlier. And this piece, I should start when. And hopefully you make the right judgment. And sometimes you turn out, oops, maybe that's not enough time or something, but I always try to leave enough time. I always sometimes, if I can, I always want to learn something and to be able to have a chance to put it away and almost forget about it before kind of relearning it. I find that process of learning and forgetting and relearning particularly insightful, because then the relationship with that piece becomes layered. So when you first learn a piece, it's always scary, you know, because I feel like every detail is in the front of your head. And then as you go through it more times, I think then the experience deepens. And also by performing it, I think that's also a quick way actually to deepen it, because you live through the most kind of on stage. Yeah, I think it's very special. Yeah, that's I hope that kind of answers the question.
Repertoire could you be preparing at the same time?
Like, for example, right now, I'm a little bit stressed because I have to play different concertos all back to back. But for example, if I just did, if I played Chopin earlier this month, and this is my second performance of it, but at the same time, I'm continuing to practice Chopin, but also at the same time, I have to get the Rachmaninoff ready that's coming up next week. So I feel like 4 or 5 concertos is already a little bit stressed. Yes. Yes, and also in October, I have to do a chamber music program, and later in December, I have to do a solo program, and so it's a little bit different things. So it's a little bit tricky. Yeah, you asked the $1 million question. Yes.
What is your warm-up or practice routine on performance day?
On performance day, I don't have a particular routine. I'm also still trying different things, and I always ask people that question to see if they're doing something special that I should know that would help. I mean, I don't have a particular routine. I almost always start with something, with some slow practice. Like maybe it's always the piece that I'm playing or something. So I just kind of by slowly going through the piece, that kind of warms up my hand and also my brain a little bit. That's how I do it. And I like something that Yo-Yo Ma used to say. He said he always starts the piece. He never goes to the virtuosic things like the first thing in the morning, because it's that relationship of you and the instrument. Like, it's almost every day you are rebuilding that relationship, and it's that sound that you're trying to curate. So he always starts with something gentle. I never thought of it that way, but when I heard him say that, I was like, oh, that's maybe that's another layer of how think about it. Yes. Yes. Okay, yes.
Do you compose anything?
I wish I could. Yeah, I wish I could. I mean, I composed things when I was in school and in classes when we had to, but definitely not good. I find it, but I learned a lot by having to compose or being made to compose, because I realized how difficult it is. Like, you are creating something out of absolutely nothing. Like, you could have put down anything, but it's your final decision to write down that instead of this or that. So, which makes me cherish what the composers write even more. I know everything is born out of hard work and labor. It's not just put there randomly. So, yeah, but I wish I could compose. Yes. Okay. Yes. Any last questions? Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much.